Good morning and welcome to Medicare Made Simple with Medicare Myriam. Medicare Made Simple is brought to you by United Insurance Experts. Call today 561-464-CARE. That's 561-464-CARE. Now here's Medicare Myriam.
Good morning, everyone. I'm your host, Miriam Leyva with United Insurance Experts. United Insurance Experts is not affiliated with or endorsed by the federal government. If you would like to know about all your options when it comes to Medicare, please call them at 1-800-MEDICARE, or you can go online to medicare.gov. Currently, United Insurance Experts represents 10 organizations that have 49 products in Palm Beach County. Before we get into today's powerful discussion, I want to start with a quick Medicare educational moment. Currently, we're in the annual election period window. It's an important time where you can make a change to your current plan. Now, if I have not talked to you and you are my client and you're concerned about 2026, please give us a call. Tomorrow, it ends. The annual election period ends on December 7th. So please make sure, again, if we are your agents, to give us a call and get on our schedule to make sure we discuss the 2026 plans. So again, if you are currently on a Medicare Advantage plan and you want to switch to another Medicare Advantage plan, this is the time. If you want to drop your current Medicare Advantage plan and go to a Medicare Supplement plan, this is also the time to drop it, but my advice is before you drop it, make sure you qualify for that supplement plan, because if you don't have a guaranteed issue, remember, you have to pass medical questions in order to get on a supplement plan. And I've seen this before where people drop their Advantage plan. We're in the new year, and then they realize they don't qualify for that supplement plan. So please make sure you qualify before dropping, or have something else in place, or be ready to pay the gaps of original Medicare, which is the deductible of Part A and 20% of Part B. Also, we've been getting a lot of calls from people that are concerned about the deadline, which is tomorrow, December 7th, and they're probably coming off a group plan, or maybe they're new to 65. That deadline does not apply to you. So that deadline is for people that are already on Medicare, that want to make a change. So if you're new to Medicare or you're coming off a group plan, the December 7th deadline does not apply to you. You might have until the end of the month. If you have a plan that is being terminated, you have until the end of the month, December 31st, to make a change for January 1st. So just remember that if you're concerned about this or you have any questions, please make sure you contact a licensed agent. If you have somebody you already trust, please make sure you reach out to them. If you don't have an agent and you still have concerns, please know you can contact United Insurance Experts at 561-464-2273. Now, with that said, today's show is incredibly important because we're talking about something that impacts so many families: addiction, mental health crisis, and the legal tools available to help protect our loved one. These situations can feel overwhelming. Families often don't know where to start or what rights they even have. That's why today's guest is truly special. It is my honor to welcome attorney Mark Astor to the show. Mark has dedicated more than 25 years to helping individuals and families navigate addiction and mental health challenges through the legal system. He is the founder of the Mental Health and Addiction Law Firm, and he has built a practice focused on empowering families, giving them legal options, legal protection, and a clear path during some of the hardest moments of their lives. Mark, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here in the studio with you.
Thank you so much. I know it feels all like, I don't know, I feel like the power in here. And I feel heat. It's a little hot.
Well, it's definitely warm in here, but maybe it's just the energy in the room.
Thank you. Okay, so Mark, let's start by, why don't you share with us your journey into law and how you came, how did you get started in the mental health and addiction?
So I come from a somewhat humble beginning. I'm originally from the United Kingdom. I moved here in 1987, but as a backstory, my father left school at 14, my mother 16, so I didn't come from an educated or affluent family, but over time, my father was an entrepreneur. He built businesses, and he did it with my mum, and some worked, some didn't. Some he made money, and some he sort of lost, you know what. And so he was sort of adamant about me being, find a profession and, you'll always make a living, because he was worried, as an entrepreneur, some days are good and some days are not so good. Right. And I think towards the end of my college career, I decided to go to law school. Between my second and third year of law school, I got a chance to be a certified legal intern with the Palm Beach County State Attorney's Office. And that really did change the direction of my career, because, to be honest, I really didn't have a passion for the law. I mean, I would say I was in the top half of the class. That doesn't really say much, but it means I wasn't in the bottom half. How's that? But I wasn't real passionate about the law. I didn't really understand a lot of the stuff. I just sort of got through law school. But I knew 5 minutes into my first real trial, that's where I was supposed to be. And I got hired about a month before I graduated law school, and spent 5 years at Palm Beach County State Attorney's Office, where I figured out pretty early that we were seeing a lot of the same people coming back over and over again. And it was primarily because they were having behavioral health issues, and we didn't have some of the diversionary courts that we now have, like drug court, mental health court, veterans court, courts that we could direct people to so they got the help they needed and wouldn't come back. But the mandate, even today in the criminal system here in Florida, is to punish first and rehabilitate second. So even in misdemeanor court, if you come back enough, at some point they're just going to lock you up, because there's no other alternative. And while I was prosecutor, they also passed what's known as the punishment code, and it's called the punishment code because it's designed to give a judge, even on a first offense in felony, the ability to punish somebody severely right out of the gate. And so I spent 5 years as a prosecutor, and I really enjoyed it. But after 5 years, and I tried about 200 jury trials, and everything from petty theft to capital murder, I was kind of done. So I did some criminal defense work for a couple of years. I made a lot more money, but I was pretty miserable. I took part of 04 and part of 05 off. I worked on a presidential campaign in Washington, D.C. I got my master's degree. In 2010, I ran off to California with what I had left after the 08 crash, and spent 3 years tripping the light fantastic in California, Southern California. Yeah. I took the bar out there twice and failed it twice, which was a real gut punch, because I think I spent maybe 3 weeks studying for the Florida bar and passed it first time. I came back after 3 years because I was broke, and I studied for it one more time. I failed it a third time, and I got within a percentage point, and friends and family were telling me, you're not supposed to be there, you're not supposed to be there. And then I basically met somebody that changed the course of my life. So I met a guy, his name is Arjon Robbins. He runs a company in Miami called How to Manage a Small Law Firm. They teach lawyers the entrepreneurial side of being a lawyer, which is not something they teach you in any law school anywhere in the country.
That is interesting.
I saw him speak to a group of 20 lawyers. It really resonated with me. And I basically begged him for a job. So I spent a whole year, this would have been in 2015, learning about the entrepreneur side of practicing law. But what I didn't realize when I went to work for him, that at their very core, what How to Manage is a personal growth company for lawyers, right? Arjon Robbins is the Tony Robbins of the legal profession. Okay. And if there's any profession that definitely needs some personal growth, it is most definitely lawyers.
Yes.
And they believe that financial growth has to be preceded by personal growth. And I realized two very important things that year. Number one, the reason I had not really enjoyed practicing law after I left the state attorney's office was, well, I'd failed to take 100% responsibility for my life, my decisions, both personally and professionally, because I'd gotten married, divorced I got married at 34, I was divorced at 35, and really had nothing going on in my personal life, and I was broke. So, and the other thing I realized was that in order to be happy, I'd have to find a bunch of people that really needed my help. And I had close family members and friends who had these issues. And so in February of 16, without any money, I sat down in the library on Spanish River in Boca, and I opened up my own law firm. And it took 14 months of hustling before anybody called me with the kind of cases that we now sort of deal with on a routine basis. So I took lots of other kinds of cases to pay my bills. And 11 months in, I lost my dad. And 2 days after I lost him, I had a family member that completely, lost it. And that was a very personal experience of how messed up Florida's Baker Act is. Yeah. So when I tell you the work is close and personal, it's close and personal.
Well,
So
thank you for sharing that. I'm glad you continued to push, and that destiny brought good people into your life and connected you so you can be where you are today.
it saved me.
Yeah, and I'm sorry to hear about your father and your family
you.
member. I know what it is to have a family member with addiction. So I completely get you. Now, for families dealing with a loved one struggling with addiction or a mental health crisis, what are the basic legal options available to help everyone, in a safe manner?
So the typical family we're dealing with is mom and dad, maybe they're married, maybe they're divorced, and they have an adult child, anywhere from 18 to 45. That's our typical range. And what's happened is they've been dealing with a substance use mental health disorder, and I put them together because they very rarely are apart. And it's been going on for years, 5 years, 10 years, sometimes even longer. And they have tried everything. They've tried to get them into treatment. And maybe they've been successful, but they've never stayed there long enough. Maybe they need to take medication, and either they've taken it and stopped, or they simply won't take it. Right. And you're dealing with somebody who's probably in complete and utter denial about their situation, even though objectively it seems like their entire life is upside down and inside out. And so that's the kind of individual we're dealing with, right? They can't hold down a job. They flunked out of college. They can't maintain any kind of intimate relationship. They're probably, up all day, sleeping all day and up all night. Perhaps they have admitted to drug use. Perhaps you're finding evidence in the house. Perhaps they've even been Baker Acted, Florida's mental health statute. And there's just a complete failure to launch and or a complete lack of ability to function on a daily basis. And the family's like, what do we do? We've tried everything. Right. And so what it really comes down to is, how do we empower the family? How do we give the family the ability and the right to make the decision to save their loved one? Because when someone's got a behavioral health issue, it's as if their brain has been kidnapped. Not only can they not save themselves, they don't even think there's a problem here. So why would they bother to save themselves?
Right.
They're fine.
Right.
And so it's about giving the family the authority to make the decision to save their loved one. Because if they don't do it, one of two things is going to happen. Number one, and I'm going to be blunt here, they're going to end up dead. Or number two, the state's going to do it for you, either through the criminal system or the mental health system. But at some point, something's going to happen. Right? This is not something that just sits still. This is a disease, and it progresses, and it ultimately will destroy your family if it's not addressed. Yeah.
And I'm glad you mentioned the disease part of things, because having a loved one that is in a situation like this, I sometimes feel like, at the beginning I felt that it was like a choice, like, he was being stubborn or whatever. He just wanted to do it. Like if it was a choice, you know what I mean? And at the end, I realized it's a disease. He can't stop.
Exactly. And I think there's sort of like sometimes for families who don't yet understand how this works, there's sort of the blame game. Oh, it's his fault, or it's her fault, or it's mom and dad's fault. Listen, it's no one's fault. Yeah. It really isn't. This is, you can't sit in judgment of each other. It just happened, right? It's like you get sick. It just happened.
Right.
And now you're just going to need to address it, as opposed to finding someone or something to blame, because that doesn't solve the problem anyway.
Yeah, I've heard the blaming game for sure. Now, we've been mentioning health, like mental health and addiction. At what point does a situation move from a health concern to a legal matter, and what should families do when that shift happens?
Well, I think when the family notices, and I'm going to focus on the mums, because for some reason mums have this sort of maternal ESP, and I have an 82-year-old mum, and I'm telling you, she knows when there's a problem, right? And so it's normally mums that call first, then dad gets involved. And I think when the mums start to notice a change, right? And I always tell parents, be nosy about what's going on in your child's life. And I use the word child because even at almost 59, I'm still her little boy, right? So it's, it could be a 25-year-old or 30-year-old. This is still someone's little girl, little boy.
Right.
I think it's about being nosy and finding out what's going on in their life, because you know instinctively, maybe even subconsciously, that something isn't right.
Right.
And asking questions, looking for evidence, right? Is there I mean, have their habits changed? I mean, just simple things like they're suddenly eating junk. You know, they're hanging out with people they would never hang out with. They can't hold down a job. They're flunking out of school. Whatever it is. Maybe they even got arrested or there was an overdose. Something has changed. There's probably a few red flags that are just glaringly there. And for whatever reason, you're like, nah, it's not really happening. There's not really a problem. If
We're in denial, I think, as a parent.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and so I think that if you as a parent are seeing things that don't feel right, if they don't pass that, that tingly test, as it were, then there's probably something going on here, and you need to take a look at it.
Yeah. Now, I'm glad you mentioned red flags. What would be one of the biggest red flags that you've seen? Aside from, I believe, an overdose, right? That would be a...
So one of the things that has become very prevalent since we legalized marijuana here in Florida is the use of legalized marijuana. I think there's sort of this misnomer that because it's legal, that it's also safe. Legal does not mean safe. It doesn't. And so that's a conversation we have quite a lot with families. But I think if you are seeing your adult child having to use on a daily basis, whether it's a gummy or a vape or a smoke, whatever it happens to be, there's a problem there. Right. Like, why is that? Why do they need to use a gummy every night to sleep? Something's going on here. Right. And I think the question that has to be asked is, has there been some type of trauma, physical, sexual, whatever it is, that's gone untreated?
Right. So, I mean, what I understand, like, I have little children right now. They need me. I need I have a teenager, right? I go through her backpack. I hope she's not listening to the show.
You should be going through a backpack. Good for you.
Yeah. So I go through her things while she's not at home because I want to make sure that she's safe. I think as a mom, I should be protecting her, right? From
100%.
And knowing this, I'm glad you point that out, because sometimes you're like, oh, when they're 18 or when they're, have their own families or whatever the story is, you feel that, okay, I don't have that responsibility. But you actually still do, in a way. You're still protecting them, even though they're in their 50s or 40s. You still have to ask those questions.
So I got remarried. I'm coming up on my second wedding anniversary, and I have two stepchildren, 26-year-old stepson and a 28-year-old stepdaughter. And I watch how my wife is with them. Yeah. And she's the same way she was. She's the same way now as I'm sure she was when they were teenagers or, 6, 7, 8. I mean, I don't think that your role as a parent really changes just because the child gets a little older. The issues might change, but I don't necessarily think that mums especially really change that much. So I applaud you for being a nosy mum.
Yes, I'm a nosy person.
You should be.
Yes,
you need to, because
you.
listen, I mean, how many silly things did we do in our teens and even in our 20s? I mean, we're just not, when you're growing up, you're evolving, you're just not capable of making really, really smart decisions. It seemed like a good idea at the time, but it turns out it was a bad idea, right? They just don't have the life experience. Yeah. And so, I think it's great what you're doing. It's important, right? You're making sure they're not stepping off in the wrong direction. Because if somebody doesn't tell them, right, that's when bad things happen.
That's right. No, I agree with you. So thank you so much for that. If a family is worried about safety in the home, what legal protection, such as court orders or restraining orders, should they be aware of?
When we're talking about safety, are we talking about somebody who's acting out, is potentially violent?
Yeah.
Well, look, I think if somebody in the house is acting out, we need to find out why. I mean, is there some type of unaddressed trauma, right? Because people don't suddenly, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, become violent, right? I mean, there's something that has triggered this.
Right. Now,
obviously, if somebody's dangerous, you got to get law enforcement involved and have the person at least temporarily removed. That's really what the Baker Act is designed for. It is a statute that allows the state to step in. Now, if somebody's violent and potentially a threat to somebody else in the home or potentially a threat to themselves, then you got to call 911 and get law enforcement to come out. And I mean, they can and should Baker Act that person and have them taken to a locked up receiving facility, at least so temporarily we can get them in a safe space and have the family in a safe space.
Okay, so I'm glad you mentioned the Baker Act. Now, I have somewhat of an understanding of the Baker Act. Now, can you explain the Marchman Act? Is it different?
It is.
Okay.
It is. So the Marchman Act is a Florida specific statute. It's one of the very important tools that we use, and it is designed to get somebody into treatment when there is a primary substance use disorder. So substance use is obviously the key, and being able to prove it. It does contemplate co-occurring mental illness, but it is for a primary substance use. The Baker Act is where there is a mental illness, and it specifically excludes substance use. But there's a real big distinction between the two. The Marchman Act is designed for treatment, and the Baker Act is not.
Okay.
The Marchman Act, and I'll try not to confuse your listeners, because it could actually be initiated the same way as the Baker Act, but it's hardly ever done that way. So if you look at the Baker Act statute and the Marchman Act statute, they can be initiated the very same way by a qualified professional, like an ER doctor or a law enforcement or a judge. As a general rule, the Marchman Act is typically only initiated when we are filing on behalf of a client, mom and dad, and a judge is getting involved, right? But it can be done by law enforcement, but it very rarely is. Maybe only 2 counties in the whole state that I've encountered will use the Marchman Act. But when it comes to the Baker Act, right, which is the lawful authority for the state to basically take custody of your loved one and make them a ward of the state, and now the state is the legal guardian, that's a little distinct from Marchman Act, which is really mom and dad getting the authority to put adult child or just somebody in the family or even a friend, right, into treatment for a primary substance use disorder. But when it comes to the Baker Act, it is the state stepping in, and the state effectively is not only terminating the rights of the patient to make medical and mental health decisions, they're terminating the rights of the parent, even if they're a designated healthcare proxy. Oh. The state now becomes mom, dad, the whole ball of wax. And so, like I said, I had a family member that was Baker Acted, and the problem with the Baker Act is that once you get Baker Acted, nobody actually knows you're there. And so it's extremely easy to abuse.
Oh, no.
Now, when it's done right, it's a very powerful life-saving tool, right? Someone's in immediate crisis. We want to be able to pick up the phone, call 911, and have law enforcement come down and take the person to a place of safety. But what happens is that once that happens, if there's no follow-up, it's very easy for the facility to abuse, right? Especially if there's health insurance involved. And I mean, I file at least a couple hundred cases every year to get people out of the Baker Act who shouldn't be there. Because once you're there, there's no oversight. Nobody's watching the facility, right? If you get arrested here in Florida and you can't, you get taken to the county jail and you can't post a scheduled bond, or it's a non-bondable offense like a domestic violence case, you're going to get to see a judge within 24 hours, and you can probably get released. You get Baker Acted, no one's alleged you've committed a crime, and you don't get to see anybody. I mean, you basically fall into a black hole unless one of two things happen. The facility decides to keep you. Now they file a petition, and you get a hearing within 5 days, or the family hires somebody like me to get them out, and quickly. So it's a powerful life-saving tool that we use sometimes, but it's very easily abused. And I always caution families, don't be so quick to run to the courthouse and file something under the Baker Act. If it's that much of an emergency, call 911. If you have time to run to the courthouse, fill out the paperwork, wait for a judge to issue an order, and then wait for law enforcement to come and execute it, it ain't that much of an emergency. They may need treatment, but the Baker Act is not designed to treat anybody. Assess, stabilize, and release. That's what it's supposed to be. But frequently, it's not. And people don't know that, so they go to the courthouse, they fill out the paperwork, I'm going to get them into treatment.
Right.
No, you're not. You're about to have your rights terminated.
Oh, my goodness.
So be careful with Baker Act.
Yeah, so you mentioned a lot of things here, and thank you for that. You mentioned do it the right way, and you mentioned hire you, and
or hire somebody.
Someone that.
I mean, you're welcome to hire me.
Sorry that.
I'm happy to self-promote, but the point is that there are, you have to take some action here.
Right. Or hire someone that focuses on this, like yourself, Mark. I like doing things the right way. And how does a family identify, I mean, of course, we mentioned the red flags. What is the first step? Do they just call you? Like, what should they be looking at, or call the lawyers that help with this situation?
Well, so I think that one of the things that we try to do with a family when they call us, and we call it triaging the case, right, is to go through what's been happening. Mm-hmm. How long has it been going on for? What have you tried? What's worked? What hasn't worked? Mm-hmm. And it's about giving the family options. That option may not include taking legal action. Maybe the family's not ready. Maybe there's insufficient evidence. I mean, whatever. Maybe there's an option here. Maybe we could do an intervention. I'll refer you to an interventionist.
Right.
Or maybe the family's just not ready. Maybe they need a clinician to step in. Maybe we're not at the point where we feel that we need to take emergency court action. And so what we try to do is to give the family options.
Yeah.
And if the option is that you don't need me, I'm going to tell you, you don't need me, but here's another option you can consider. If I think that the only option is to file something, I'm going to tell you, we need to get into court. Mm-hmm. We need to get into court quickly. Otherwise, this is going to spiral out of control, and you're going to have a much bigger problem on your hands.
Right. Now, for our listeners that are in this type of situation and would like to learn more about what you do and your services, what's the best contact for you, Mark?
So you can find us on the web. The main website is mentalhealthaddictionlawfirm.com. That's mentalhealthaddictionlawfirm.com. The main number to the office is 561-419-6095. Or if you just Google me, I've got about 650 videos on YouTube with content you can listen to till your heart's content, all about Baker Act, Marchman Act, and even the guardianship process. I do them every day so the families can get the information they need for free. And I've also got an ebook on the main site too.
Oh, nice. That's good to know. I didn't know you had that. That's wonderful. I think I could just enjoy listening to your accent. I never listened to this show, but I think I'm going to listen to. I never listen to myself talk. It's so funny. I never.
Who likes to even hear themselves talk? I don't like to hear myself talk.
You, Mark.
You would. Sweet.
Well, Mark, thank you so much for sharing your expertise today. These conversations can be difficult, but they are necessary, and understanding our legal options can truly save lives and protect families. To our listeners, remember that you're not alone. Whether you're navigating Medicare decisions or facing a family crisis, there are resources, professionals, and legal tools available to support you. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. And again, remember, tomorrow is the last day of the annual election period. Wishing everybody a wonderful weekend. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Medicare Made Simple with Medicare Myriam right here on Legends 100.3. Medicare Made Simple is brought to you by United Insurance Experts. For more information, call 561-464-CARE. That's 561-464-CARE. Tune in next Saturday at 9 a.m. for more Medicare Made Simple with Medicare Myriam.